This conference will now be recorded.
Looks like you can see it, huh?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. All right. Let's see, how do I stop sharing here?
All right, I see Jason. That's a good sign. We have a quorum.
Go.
All right, it is time to get started, and we've got a quorum on the commission. So I'm going to call this public meeting of the Woodland Planning Commission to order at 7 p.m. on February 18th, 2021. It is the role of the Planning Commission to hold workshops to review and make recommendations to the City Council on all manner of policy and legislative activities. Sometimes we act as a quasi-judicial board for land use cases that can then be appealed to either the council, a hearing examiner, or the court. That is not the case this evening. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting is held as a conference call to comply with the governor's stay home, stay healthy orders, but we will follow the same procedures that we use for our meetings that are exclusively in council chambers. You'll all have two opportunities, you'll have two opportunities to give comment this evening, once at the beginning of the meeting, if you would like to speak about something that is not on the agenda, and then later on during our public hearing, if you are wanting to speak for something on the agenda. If you aren't, if we're not taking public comment and you're not giving public comment, if you would mind putting your microphone or telephone on mute, just to keep the sort of stray noise at a minimum, that would be lovely. As you heard, we are recording the meeting. A brief summary of our proposed agenda is call to order, which I'm doing right now. Then we'll have citizen communications for items not on the agenda. We'll approve the agenda. We will have our brief consent items. We'll do a public hearing, maybe some staff reports, and then we'll all get out of here. So first up, Janice, would you mind call and roll for us?
Be my pleasure. Brian Matson. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yes, I'm here.
Perfect, thank you. Jason Lugo.
Here.
Sam Nigro.
Sam is maybe running late, but we are expecting him.
Okay. Tiffany Witten. And Tel Jensen.
I am here.
Thank you.
Frank Charbonneau.
Just call and roll for the commission. Thanks, Frank. All right, we've also got Travis Goddard here, our community development director. Melissa Johnson is our associate planner. You just heard Janice Fisher, our clerk for the evening. I believe Frank Randolph, the city attorney, is also attending, which is lovely. So now, if anybody wants to speak for something not on the agenda, if you wouldn't mind, we're going to try using the chat function in here, just to, not for your comment, but just to let me and staff know that you want to speak. So if you have, if you'd like to speak about something that is not on the agenda, please say type that yes, you want to speak and your city of residence into the chat box, and we will hear what you have to say. And just, again, this is for things that are not on the agenda. Okay. Doesn't look like anybody scream or shout or wave your hands, but I'm gonna move on. Next up is our agenda approval. And I will need a motion from the commissioner for that.
I move that we approve approve the agenda.
All right, Brian Mattson has made a motion to approve the agenda.
I second that.
All right, it's been seconded by Jason Lugo. Do either of you have any discussion?
None from me.
No. Okay, I think the agenda looks pretty good to me too. So let's go ahead and vote. Anyone opposed to approving the agenda? I don't hear anyone opposed, so the motion carries. Moving on to our consent items, which is just approving the minutes from our last meeting.
I glanced at them and they look fine. I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, thanks. Brian Mattson moved to approve minutes.
I second.
And Jason Lugo seconded. Thank you both. Do you have any discussion?
I do not.
No. All right, let's have a vote on that as well then. Anyone opposed to approving minutes from our January meeting? No one opposed, so the motion carries. Moving right along to a public hearing. Sorry, one moment. All right. So, sorry, bear with me. All right, this is public hearing for the Kirkland Senior Living project. That is CPA-20-002/SPR-20-009/SCP-20-014/VAR-20-002. The applicant is requesting a change to the comprehensive plan designation from industrial to commercial and the zone change from light industrial to highway commercial, a height variance, a site plan review, and review of a SEPA checklist for a mixed-use senior living facility. The building is proposed to be 5 stories, a maximum of 58.5 feet in height, and 141,129 square feet in area. Project includes 150 living units, a lobby area, a leasing management office, a spa, and a pub. 51 parking spaces are proposed, with 41 parking spaces for residents and 10 parking spaces for employees and visitors. The proposed project would be located at 600 Mitchell Avenue, parcel number 5042302 in Woodland, Washington, 98674. I want to ask if any member of the commission has any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest they need to declare. I do not.
No.
Okay. In that case, I think we can move on to our staff presentation.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to get my PowerPoint back to the full screen.
Quite all right. And what I will remind folks while you're figuring that out, that there is a Zoom function on GoToMeeting here. So if something's a little too small for you, if your screen's not quite big enough, you can zoom in a little bit. I have found that helpful. And also, while we're waiting on Travis, everybody is welcome right now to notify in the chat box that they would like to give public comment. Again, please give me your city of residence and just a heads up that you would like to speak.
Hey, Tal, I have a question. I don't anticipate needing it, but where do you input your text like you wanted to?
Okay, think that's a good question. Using my computer, there's a little like speech
Oh,
bubble
I see it. I see it.
up in the, upper right corner.
It would have bit me if it was right in front of me.
Yeah. Next to the gear. Yeah. If anybody else has any trouble, please let us know. Your testimony is important.
There we go. Hopefully you can see it full screen now.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So the application that we're here to talk about tonight is the Kirkland Senior Living project. And we have several applications for this case, as you read. And I broke the staff reports up into two distinct phases. The first one is the comprehensive plan and the zoning map amendment. And then the second portion that we will tackle second is the actual physical site plan development after we address the use issue as laid out here. So the applicant is proposing to go from what is currently an industrial comprehensive plan designation to a commercial comp plan designation, and the zoning from light industrial to highway commercial. And I started in the staff report with a little historical data to set the background context, because we've been through these conversations several times in the last few years since the comp plan was updated. Specifically, we had a large group of applications in 2018 that lasted through 2019 before we reached a decision. So our 20-year comprehensive planning document is 2016 through 2036, and our population growth was to add 3,566 people. We were supposed to add 1,292 units. Our job growth projections are 2,480 for commercial and 2,192 for industrial. So that's a total job growth of 4,672 total. And our comprehensive plan included projections for water, sewer, park, fire, and police urban services to serve that population, and the 20-year land supply, which I'll get into that in a little bit more, but essentially our land supply included commercial, industrial, and residential. And we are 5 years through that comprehensive plan. 2021 is 5 years, and so using the basic assumption of 5% per year, that would get us through the 20-year growth projection. So I made this chart to give you an idea of where we stand. So of the projected population on that top line, to date, we've added 445 to our population, and our projection was 3,566. So we have realized 12.4% of our growth, and we are about 13.5% behind theoretically our theoretical target. Residential units, we estimated 1,288. We have only built 112 to date, but we have approved within the last year 197 additional single-family residential lots. So together, that's 23.9%, which puts us about 1.1% behind our 25% 5-year projection. But the reality is those 197 lots have not been built on. So really we are 16%, about 16% behind on implementing our comprehensive plan projection for residential units. On the commercial side, we started with 124 vacant buildable lands in 2016. We've developed 41.25 of those. And for the record, Sam, do you maybe want to take a seat over here so the mic can pick you up just in case? So just for the record, I'll have maybe Sam do a quick announcement that he's here.
Sam is here.
Oh, you catch that?
Sorry, I hope I didn't hold anybody up.
So
How we got going with that, Sam? But glad to have you aboard.
okay. So just to catch up, we're about 13.5% behind on our population growth after 5 years of our 20-year plan. We're about 16% behind on our residential units. Commercial land supply, as I was talking about, started with 124 acres. About 41.25 of that has either been developed or approved. And so we've used, so the minus represents we've used 33.2% of our land supply, which basically means we're using our commercial a little faster than projected. Industrial, we had 548 of vacant industrial land. 154 acres of that is either developed or been approved for development. It's at about 28% of our industrial land supply. And so we're a little faster than our projection, but we're kind of in the ballpark window for industrial development. Residential, we had 174 acres in our comprehensive plan, and 92.3% of that has been developed or approved for develop, which is 54% of our land supply for residential, which means we are significantly developing our residential land faster than projected. But I would like to point out there are some quirks with that. The remaining 80 acres approximately has significant environmental constraints on it, including steep slopes and floodplain, and also a significant amount of that is multi-family. And so all residential property is not created equal. So not only are we using it faster, but there is less residential land that is developable in that remaining pot of vacant buildable land. And then growth projections, the commercial growth of 2840 or 2480 commercial jobs, we have implemented or got approval for about 800 jobs. And this is using the comprehensive plan projection of 20 jobs per acre, which means we are 33% of our projected commercial growth, and industrial 616 jobs of the 2192 we projected, and that's about 28%. So our industrial is about where we expect it, and the commercial is a little faster than we are projecting. I need to point out that that doesn't tell the whole story, because although our population has grown by 445 people since 2016 or 2015 is the number they used, only 112 housing units have been built, but our housing appears to be about 3.9 people per unit. And if we were to just use a thumbnail of assuming 2 adults and 2 kids per household for that 3.9 people per unit, we're only talking about 223 working aged residences. And we also know from past statistical work that only 14% of the city residents who live in Woodland actually work in Woodland. So of the approximate 12 to 1,400 jobs that we've created, we can only expect about 32 city residents to actually be filling those jobs. And so while we appear to be doing well at job creation, and we don't necessarily, I don't know that we're doing a good job in getting jobs for local residents. So that appears to be a disconnect, something that we're going to need to figure out how to address with the next update of the comprehensive plan. So what you have in front of you is the 2 maps. On the right-hand side, you see the existing map with the site identified on it. It's identified in blue as industrial, and the proposal is to convert it to pink, so it would look like the commercial designation on the right. And the zone change is very similar. You have a light blue, I'm sorry it doesn't show it very well, but that is a light blue, light industrial zoning on the left. And on the right side, the pink would extend into this zone with the highway commercial. So that's the what those two maps are showing or trying to show. The 2-acre site that we're talking about, it represents about 0.36 or 1/3% of the industrial land supply, and it represents about 1.5% of the commercial land supply. And so it's a significantly smaller pool of commercial land than it is industrial land. So these 2 acres have a little more impact in the commercial supply. The 2018, I'd like to point out that we had 8 comprehensive plan requests. Only 3 of those 8 were approved, and it included 2 5 or 5.5 acre commercial designation or redesignations going to residential, and the other 5 that might have brought a little more balance converting other land to commercial were denied. So these were factors that were brought into staff's recommendation because we needed to take a look at our existing land supply in evaluating the changed circumstances and the context of this proposal. So before I go on, are there any questions about that kind of historical snapshot?
Looks good to me. My one question is about our jobs assumptions. Do we have, it looks like you're just basing those on our comp plan assumptions. Do we have any, I guess, actual job numbers that aren't based on those assumptions?
You know, we do not. And part of the reason why I wrestle with that is because in this case, I am looking at not only stuff that has been built, but stuff that has been approved and stuff that is in construction. So those would all be zeros until the actual business gets their certificate of occupancy and they start doing training or they open for business. So even trying to do a straight calculation of employment numbers is going to be difficult because like we have a large project called the Carpenito Brothers, and their job projection was 300, and they have not started construction. So using the comprehensive plan of 4 jobs per acre, and they have 49 acres. So comp plan rule of thumb is they would do 200 new jobs, even though their proposal is 300 jobs. So lacking any better, more accurate data, and especially with COVID-19, it's going to be especially hard to try and contact new businesses and understand what's going on. So for lack of better data, I'm using the comp plan because that's the guiding document for the community.
Yeah, and that seems reasonable. And sorry, this is a little bit of a aside, I guess, but I mean, do we have, I guess, largely for kind of updating our priors on that, our assumptions, is that information accessible at all? Do businesses in town report the number of employees anywhere that we have access to?
You know, there are ways to find out that data, and I was talking to the port staff, and I also talked to the COG, the Cowlitz Council of Government, who deals with who we have a connection through Cowlitz County. They didn't necessarily have good data for me. They can contact the Social Security office, and there are some other data sources that they use. But again, because of COVID-19, the numbers are so skewed. You know, it's kind of like the 2008 situation again, where the jobs may not necessarily have disappeared, but there's just nobody in these potential job positions currently. So I think they're floundering like I am.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I just, whenever possible, getting some real numbers as opposed to, assumptions or feelings about things is,
Yep.
I think.
And also, I would like to point out that we had planned to do a comprehensive plan update in 2011, and it may be in 2021. That may be pushed back to 2022 now. But theoretically, if this project hadn't come along, I would be working on our housing chapter and housing action plan and starting to generate some of those data points for the comp plan update. But unfortunately, we just seem to be too busy to try and get that front and center on our plates.
Okay, all right, thanks, Travis.
Okay. So I'll move into kind of the analysis, the amendment codes that we talked about. So there's RCWs, some Washington, so that's Revised Code of Washington, Growth Management Act. The Washington Administrative Code is WAC, and WMC is the Woodland Municipal Code. And for comp plans and zone changes, there are two main sections that we deal with, and that is 17.84, which is the amendment process, and 1908, which is the city's administrative sections. And I highlight two important things here because I'm going to skim them, and that is the administrative code says that when you have properties that are reviewed together, concurrent, that they require the highest level of review for all permits. So although they might be applying for a minor variance, a type 1 administrative variance that would normally be reviewed by staff, because it is with some type 3 and type 4 permits, which are require public hearings and require planning commission and city council action, that the variance gets treated like one of those permits. So I wanted to point that out, that hopefully that will explain why a minor variance is before you tonight. And also the last thing that we look at is the Woodland Comprehensive Plan. We are voluntarily planning under the Growth Management Act as a fully planning jurisdiction, even though Cowlitz County and the majority of our jurisdiction is in a partially planning county. So the review standards that we're particularly concerned with in the staff report is 17.84040, which requires 90 or action by the Planning Commission within 90 days from tonight's hearing. That means you need to issue a recommendation to the City Council within 90 days, and staff must provide a staff report, and so those are before you tonight. So half of that is done, the staff report is done, your recommendation, you have 90 days to make a recommendation. The Planning Commission may request additional information it deems necessary to judge the merits of the proposal. So if you don't think you have enough information here tonight, you can request additional documents and additional information. And the Planning Commission may continue the hearing to your next meeting or to a specific date. So if you wanted to meet again in a week or in a month, you may do so with a simple majority of the, or I believe that may be by board chair direction. And continued, the considerations that you have to apply when you review this, and that is consistency with our comprehensive plan, the other plans within the city. So examples like that would be the water and sewer plan, because those are adopted as part of the comprehensive plan, and standards of the city code. So whether that be zoning or the chapters that I was talking about before. Other factors are necessary, or other factors as necessary for the protection of public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare. And I'll get to that in a little more detail later, because there are some nuances in some of the comments that we've received so far. The RCWs, the WMCs also require that a site plan be submitted with zone changes for commercial property. So that's why you have 4 applications before you today, rather than just the comp plan and the zone change. And they have complied with the RCWs and the WACs for the amendment procedures to date. So assuming we can meet that 90-day deadline and the City Council can take action, the Department of Commerce will review the adoption document if the city decides that it's going to approve these. So consistency of review, this is the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare. Some of the issues or factors that I factored into my review in the staff report is that this site is centrally located within the city. It is a walkable location with a sidewalk network. The proximity to the shopping, dining, medical. There's some medical offices next to the Guadalajara restaurant, which are adjacent to this site. Multimodal, walkable, they're proposing a van pool, and they also have vehicles available to them. Reduced barriers to service due to the location. So in other words, walking to the medical offices, Starbucks, to the Safeway to meet their needs. The site is generally located in a good position, served by city utilities and city streets. That's water, sewer, fire, police, and parks. And the city of streets that service this site, so if we're going directly out to Pacific Avenue, the level of service for those city streets is A, B, and C. The intersection in front of Carl's Jr. and McDonald's by I-5 is the intersection that has a level of service C, and that is in the I-5 right-of-way. And just for the record, level of services are A through E, or maybe A through F. So these are considered to be either free-flowing or near free-flow conditions. Some of the other issues that need to be considered or were considered in the staff report, and that is noise. So there are conditions added about the applicant will have to include noise reduction steps in their building. Odors, and that is something that could be added to the developer's agreement, recognizing that the developer understands that there may be odors in this area and they accept them because the odors were pre-existing. Hours of operation, that could also be added to the developer's agreement, that they recognize that the existing businesses have the right to operate under the city's noise and hours of operation regulations. There's the question of use compatibility. It could be added to the developer's agreement that they recognize that they are in proximity to uses that may not be incompatible, whether it's noise, odor, or just the general character of the neighborhood, that they recognize that that pre-existed before this development was built. And then the last one is trip generation, although it needs to be noted that whether it develops as commercial, residential, mixed use, or industrial, that there will be trips generated to this property. And given the street conditions, that is part of the factor that I considered in my recommendation. And so the staff recommendation is that the zone change and the comprehensive plan amendment be approved with conditions as outlined in the staff report. Any questions?
I haven't got any questions right now. Any from the other commissioners before we move on? I'm sure questions will come up at some point, but thanks for that presentation.
Not at the moment.
I have none either. Not at this time.
Okay. Great. In that case, let's move on to staff presentation. And who is giving the staff presentation this evening? Or sorry, the applicant presentation. Is that coming from OTAC?
I think
Yeah,
Kevin-
that's coming. Yeah, that's coming from OTAC. So our presentation is really based more on the site plan review and the variance. We're really just kind of going to walk through, you know, the project itself. So we thought that both of the staff reports are going to be presented, and then we do our presentation. So so just bear that in mind.
Okay, great. I think that might be the only staff report we've got for the evening. Is that correct, Travis? Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah.
So the staff report for site plan review and variance is not going to be presented then?
Not until after we go through this discussion and address these issues first.
Okay. Okay. Well, then let's let me introduce our team real quick.
Sorry, unless Tell, you feel I should make the second one as well.
Okay. So just to be clear, that let me look at my agenda real quick. You have another, okay, you've got this other staff report, that's the site plan and variance request, and you were holding off on that until we made a determination on the comp plan zone map amendment. Was that right?
And that's the question. Is that what you would like me to do, or do you want me to make that presentation now, and so you can act accordingly?
I think just so that public comment makes more sense, I think maybe we should get both those reports at once. Otherwise, we might need to open up public comment a couple times, and that could get a little confusing for me at least. So
okay.
yeah. Sorry
Okay. So the applicant will hold off on presentation until we hear the second staff report presentation.
Okay, that's works for me. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay. So this presentation is specifically about the physical development of the site plan review, the variance, and the SEPA that went with it. And the actual proposal that we're talking about is the mixed-use senior living center. It's 2 acres in size, 145,000 square foot building, plus building. They're proposing 150 units, 21 of them are studios, 108 of them are 1 bedroom, and 21.
Can I interrupt you real quick, Travis? Yeah. Do you have a presentation to show us, or is it just?
Oh, sorry.
To share? No, that's fine.
Looking at it on the screen.
Yeah, we like pictures. They help.
Okay. Sorry, there.
Thanks.
So 2 acres, 146,000 square foot building, 150 units, 21 studio, 108 bedroom, and 21 2 bedroom. There's approximately 12,000 square feet of ground floor commercial, and they are proposing a pub, spa, salon, some lobby, some outdoor plaza on the ground floor, and 49 parking spaces, and the height of 5 stories, which is 78.5 feet, and that's with the variance, and that's within the 30% type 1 minor variance standard. So this slide shows you the view from Mitchell and also an aerial view. On the bottom picture, you can see the Safeway parking lot in the background. You can see the A1 trucking site to the right. And it looks like a white space on the bottom, but that's actually the roof of the storage business next door. So it will be surrounded by, on the south side and the northwest side is, on this picture, on the bottom side and the right-hand side, by long structures adjacent to the property line, and then open parking area to what's actually to the east, if in real life. The site is shown in In context, again, you can see that there's a storage business on the left, and to the south, you see the trucking business, the truck repair business, and then to the east or to the right, you can see that there's the Safeway infrastructure and the Safeway building. And again, there's another shot of comprehensive plan that is requesting to be amended. This may not show up very well, but it's the site plan, and on the bottom floor, it actually looks like it's two different buildings because there's a long building parallel to the bottom and then a smaller building angled at about 45 degrees on the north or the top of this site plan. And the parking, the reason why it was designed like this, the original proposal is they had an L-shaped building, but because they needed to have fire access and emergency vehicle access, they broke the bottom floor and created a looped parking area so that they had emergency vehicle access. And this is the architectural plan. You can see this on the website or on the packet if you've had a chance to look at it, but it shows the individual units in the building, the angled building, whereas to the south, that's where the commercial, or at the bottom of the site plan, sorry, that is the commercial structure with the office and the recreation space for this, the internal mixed use structure. And this is the second floor, and you'll notice that this is where it turns into a single building because there is an open drive-through space on the bottom where the front entry is, but it's out of the rain, out of the snow, and on the upper floors, it is one complete connected building. And you can see that in the pictures here. You can see that in the top picture, there's a white gap in the building that represents the portico or the entrance to the building, whereas the bottom view represents the single structure that's parallel to the south property line. But it gives you an idea of what the building that they're proposing. Some more building elevations from different angles. The review authority, again, we're talking about 17.84 for the comp plan and the zone change, and the Planning Commission recommended to City Council. And although in this case, the site plan standard, sorry, I missed that one, is actually in 1908, which again is our administrative section. But it is covered in the staff report, so sorry I missed that on the slide. The potential development impact fees implications from this project is about $41,000 for transportation impact fees. Fire impact fee is actually calculated based upon unit and square foot of commercial, and it comes out to about $220,000 worth of fire impact fees. School impact fees. School impact fees are payable on residential units for residents that are under, or that are, there is an exemption for 62 and older housing. And in this case, the applicant has indicated that it will not be 62 and over. It may be 55 and over, I think is the number I heard. They might get into that. So there are units that would have to pay school impact fees. And that's a rough estimate of what it would cost based upon the number of room units that they have. And then the park impact fees are $124,000, and I'm sorry, that should be $124,500, not $12,450. But those are technically calculated at the time of building permit issuance. So if they make some changes, if they increase the commercial zone, that might change some of these calculations. But that's the ballpark figure of the mitigation that they are going to be paying for the impacts that they're causing through the new development. The site improvements, they do not actually need to do any street or sidewalk improvements because the street is fully developed. They will have to remove the existing curb, gutter, and sidewalk to do their driveway approach. So they will need to replace those and bring them up to city standards. There are water mains and sewer mains in the fronting street, and there's a condition that indicates that they will have to do a study of the amount of waste that's produced, and that will go to lift station 5, and they're going to have to do an analysis and determine whether any system improvements need to be made, and then they would be responsible for mitigating those potential upgrades and impacts. Also, fire flow and hydrants, they are going to be required to complete Clark Cowlett's fire rescue review, and Chief Jackson is in attendance tonight if you have questions about fire flow and fire district review. But generally, the conditions 8 through 12 cover the site plan, and it includes a final stormwater TIR that is going to need to be required. So permitted uses in the zoning, going to a C2, assuming that that gets approved, that the C2 allows, or it includes C1 uses, and the C1 district allows residential dwellings above a commercial use, lobbies on the ground floor, and it also allows ground floor units, residential units, if you are not on Davidson or Gorig, and in this case, it meets that criteria. And also the pub and the spa / salon, they are proposed commercial uses that are both on the permitted uses list in the commercial zoning district. So the parking, this may or may not come up. They've proposed 49 parking spaces, and the retirement homes, according to our code, has a calculation that is based upon the number of employees and the number of beds, and assuming 1 bed per bedroom, we ran out the calculation to approximately 42.75 for the beds. 6 employees, that's 2 spaces, and then with 2 commercial spaces, those each require a minimum of 4 parking spaces for commercial uses, so that would be another 8. So by code, it looks like they would be required to have 53 parking spaces, but our code specifically says that flexibility is allowed, and one of the presumptions that staff applied, and that is a mixed use, a significant number of the spa and the pub users should be residents of the structure. Therefore, there's a presumption that there will be less than normal parking and trip generation because people will be walking inside the building to go to those commercial businesses. The parking and the landscaping also comes up, and the landscaping requires a 10-foot buffer, and those are all met. It also requires one tree per 6 parking spaces, and the requirement would require 8.2 trees, but they've actually proposed 18 trees, and then their planting plan for the rest of it meets the standard as conditioned. Site plan standards for design, these are the architectural design criteria. They are required to have a courtyard and a plaza area, and they actually provide 2 of them, plus some additional space near the front of the building. Some entrance visibility, so there has to be a gateway, and we saw, or we may go back and take a look at the building elevations that show the building design meets that criteria. The landscaping strip is provided. The defined walkway that connects the sidewalk to the buildings is in place. They have provided bicycle parking as required by code. Their garbage and recycling dumpsters are inside the building, which meets the screening standard in our code. And the maximum height in the C2 district is 45 feet. And as mentioned before, with a minor variance, they can increase that 30%, which is 13.5 feet. And the applicant is proposing a 58.5 foot building, which meets that criteria. The one thing I do want to point out, and that is the Woodland Code 17.81.180 does have language that says no residential density variances can be requested. And the reason for that is when you're talking density, number of units or lot sizes of a residential development for residential units, you would not use a variance to increase density. You would require a rezone. So in other words, your 10,000 square foot lot, you can't do a 20% variance to get to an 8,000 square foot lot. What you would have to do is you would have to rezone from low density residential 10,000 square feet to low density residential 8,000 square feet, or 7,200 or 6,500 or 6,000. So you rezone for residential densities. You do not vary residential densities with a variance. So again, staff recommendation is that the site plan meets the standards and that the variance meets the criteria for approval. And so we also recommend approval on the variance and the site plan for this project. I guess I should cover this one, sorry. Last slide, I think. Stop bar pavement is going to be, and pavement marking is going to be required on Mitchell. They need to demonstrate that there's adequate water for fire flow. They need to detail the sewer demand at lift station 5, and they're responsible for system upgrades if they're needed. They will need to complete a final stormwater plan and implement it as part of their construction. They need to provide evidence of parking demand, and they submitted a letter that was sent to you earlier this week regarding their existing conditions at their other facilities that show approximately 20% parking, or 20% of their residents own cars, and our code assumes 25% own cars in this situation. So their actual real life conditions are lower than the code requires. Provide plaza, which they do. They will need to comply with Clark County or Clark Cowlitz Fire Rescue. Sorry, Chief, I keep butchering your name. Also comply with SEPA requirements and to mitigate for outdoor noise. Any questions?
I do. So we have 150 units, 55 and older.
Hold on one second.
Sam, hang on.
All right, that's Sam speaking? All right, great.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sam. Sorry about that.
So we have 150 units and only 25% used vehicles. We have 49 spaces. I don't know. I'm just looking at this, and so we have 150 units. How many are husband and wife? Looks like a great project. We can really have enough parking spaces pragmatically.
So our code assumes a reduction because of the walkability factors, and that seniors aren't necessarily as able to drive for as long, depending on their ages. So our code makes that assumption of 25%, and the applicant will address whether or not they think that's reliable based upon their individual existing project. So hopefully they'll answer that.
Sweet. This is a senior center. Define that. Is that a rest home or is it just a retirement place for?
So
With the pub, I assume that we're talking because, hey, I can apply for residency this year. So, and I'm just saying, how many 55 to 65, 70-year-olds are going to be driving?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I can answer that, so I will leave that for the applicant to answer.
Okay, great. Those are good questions, Sam. Appreciate that. Any of the other commissioners have any questions for Travis before we move on?
No, not at this time.
I basically had the same question Sam did about the parking, so I'll let the applicant explain it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Travis. Appreciate that second presentation. I think that will streamline things a little bit to do them both at once. All right, so Kevin, are you or others at OTalk ready to give us an applicant presentation?
Yeah, we are. I think first of all, let me go ahead and introduce the applicant team. So I'm Kevin Brady. I'm a senior planner with OTAC and have been on the project since the beginning. Also, first want to say we appreciate all the help that we've received from staff in navigating the Woodland Municipal Code and the comp plan. It's been very helpful, and we really appreciate it. The rest of the team, Dean Kirkland is on the call with his team, with Dana, and I think maybe that's Victoria there too. I can't really see. So Dean is a developer in Southwest Washington. Some of you may know Dean. He's done a lot of these types of projects and a lot of other projects. He is on the call tonight with us on our team. Brian Fleener is also here. Brian is the Director of Architecture for OTAC. And Chris Maycutt is the project architect. He's also here. We have Frank Charbonneau is here, the traffic engineer. And we also have Mark Zeman, who is our civil engineer with OTAC. And then finally, we have Armand Resto Spots, who is our legal counsel. So that's our team here tonight. So we wanted to provide a broad team so that when questions came up and clarifications came up, we had different specified experts to be able to handle those. So, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Maycutt. Chris is going to give a presentation of the project and kind of give it some design context here as well. So, Chris, you wanna roll it out?
Yeah. Let me see here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, looks good, Chris. Thanks. I'll remind
you see
folks
the box on the right?
Zoom in on that. If you want to see anything closer, you can on the right-hand side of your screen, you should be able to zoom in.
Okay. Okay, to start off, again, thank you for this opportunity. I'll start with just a general overview. This is an aerial view, kind of looking north of the property. To the east, you have the Safeway in the parking lot. To the south is the A1 truck repair shop. And to the west and north is a storage facility. As it's been mentioned, we're looking at a 5-story multi-use building that's primarily senior living on the upper floors and a mix of commercial and amenity spaces on the ground level. Let's see. Here's a site plan of how the site lays out. Project North is up. Our access into the site is off of Mitchell here at the southeast corner. The building at the ground level is broken up into 2 wings, what we're calling the south wing here at the south, and then the north wing, broken up at the ground level with the vehicular and pedestrian connection. So up on the second level and above, the buildings kind of connect here. Again, that was for fire access, to get access around the property. We also have, in addition to the access off of Mitchell, we have additional pedestrian connection to the Safeway and the services to the east. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Shoot. I can zoom in. That's right here, if everyone can see that. This is sort of a ground floor uses showing the north and the south wing. The south wing is primarily amenities, office, admin staff, and the commercial space. And then the north wing is primarily residential on the ground level. Okay. Here's a zoom in of how we're organizing the ground level. So the south wing is primarily, as I said, the amenity spaces. So if you can see can everyone see my cursor? Okay. So here's the entry to the south. We've got admin spaces to the left, elevator, mail package to the right, and then everything's kind of organized along this corridor. We provide for an indoor pool, socializing areas with a lobby lounge, bar bistro, great room, and then it was mentioned 2 small commercial spaces that would be utilized by the residents and the general public. So that's here, the spa, and then a bar, pub, or any kind of small food and beverage type of use. And then on the north building, we have a small amenity reading room and sitting room. This is a typical upper plan showing how the building, the north and the south wings are connected. So here's a material palette. It's primarily clad with fiber cement siding. We have a variation of lap siding, fiber cement panel system, board and batten, and then some cultured stone at the ground level. We also wanted to incorporate, there's some great fishing industry and outdoor activities around the Woodland. So we thought it'd be fun to highlight that with some art panels, both at the exterior and interior. So the bottom 2 images are, you know, a little design motif on salmon and surrounding mountains. Here's the west elevation, the south elevation, showing how we're breaking up the facades with the red or bay bump outs, and then highlighted at the corners with sloped roofs and balconies at the corners. Here's a north and east elevation where you can see in the bottom the pass through for the vehicular drive aisle. And then a couple perspectives of the top image, entry onto the site through the entry gateway, and then the bottom image, the view you would see from I-5 or the Safeway parking lot. And then additionally, we have two main outdoor amenities. So the south garden patio and a north garden patio. Here, the south, the concept is to have all the ground level amenities kind of spilling out on the south side of the building to the garden patio. It also includes a outdoor horseshoe pit on the east side. And then on the north portion of the triangle, an additional outdoor space that has, again, more horseshoe pit, and then an outdoor patio with a trellis feature. And then here you can see zoomed in that access to the Safeway property. And then finally, some landscape elements that we intend using. Decorative wood, cedar type fence along the perimeter. And then the other images showing the quality of the trellis and benches and other landscape elements we intend to use. And that is it for our portion.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that part of the presentation gave a nice depiction of a lot of the design features of the project, which hopefully helps in a little bit better understanding of what our intention is. Kind of in a bigger picture, I mean, our team was very excited about this site, and just the timing of a mixed use type of project, along with a need for high density housing in an existing commercial neighborhood, really was a great opportunity for us. And we're hoping that others can see the same sort of vision of integrating a mixed use type of development with pretty high level of design and number of units that will integrate into this commercial neighborhood. We have existing sidewalks, but as Chris was pointing out, we have ongoing communication and support from Safeway to provide that direct connection to the grocery store, and then obviously people can go to other parts of that sort of commercial area with the restaurants, medical offices, et cetera. So for us, this was an opportunity to really, with the timing of, the need for housing, especially a senior type of mixed use project integrated into this commercial neighborhood was just a great fit. So I think with that, Armand was going to have a few closing statements as part of our presentation. So Armand, do you want to make a few comments before we hand it back to the chair?
I do. Thank you, Kevin. Am I coming through? Great.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Armand Resto Spots. In case you didn't catch it from earlier with Kevin, I am representing Applicant in this matter as legal counsel. First, thank you for providing some time for the applicant to appear, to talk about the project, give some of the specific details, especially with our own workings and drawings here. And as Kevin relayed, I also want to express some thanks to staff. The staff report, doing an excellent job in summarizing the applicable code processes here. And for my portion today, I just want to have a few preliminary comments, specifically with respect to the code amendment, the comprehensive plan amendment, I should say, and the rezone. And I just want to talk a little bit about what the Planning Commission's role and their review tonight on that proposal specifically. We submitted a letter earlier this afternoon, which should be in the record now, and hopefully the commissioners were able to review that. If not, I'm sure we'll touch on some of those subjects today, but it pretty much outlines all the points I'll make here, and it includes some additional points that we may not get to. I'm going to defer to that written submittal for some of our other arguments of why we really believe this proposal is really in furtherance of so many comprehensive plan policies and goals in the city, but I won't be able to repeat them all. And so I really will defer to that written material first and foremost. But that letter was submitted primarily as a response to a letter of opposition that was submitted for this project a few days ago. And that was submitted on the behalf of Truck Shops Incorporated. I'm just going to briefly abbreviate that as TSI, just so I don't have to go through that full name each time. And they own the property to the south of the site. And the commissioners may have been able to review that letter. I'm going to hold discussion on the particulars of that response letter as they come up, as I do believe there are councils here for some public comment. But just as a preliminary matter, I'd just like to speak to the Planning Commission's scope of review and the standard review on the amendment and the rezone proposal. Because in our view, and as I've written and as I described, I think TSI has really misconstrued and misapplied the application of the city's comp plan to your decision and to the specific proposal at issue. So as Travis had highlighted earlier, Woodland Municipal Code, specifically Section 1784, I should say, outlines the general standard of review, if you will, for plan amendments and rezones. The Planning Commission specifically, and I'll quote, bases their decision on the consideration of the comp plan, other plans of the city, as Travis identified, the standards of the code, and other factors necessary for consideration to protect the public health, safety, convenience, and general welfare. That sort of umbrella framework is the standard that the Planning Commission is reviewing the amendment and rezone requests under. The comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan specifically, has a number of policies and goals, which, as you know, you've gone through the process to produce that and to craft that, that sets a guiding framework, guiding principles for the commission and the city going forward in making these types of land use decisions. So ultimately, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation, ideally supporting its decision based on some of those goals and policies, and then City Council ultimately renders a final decision. And just for example, as Travis highlighted in the staff report, and as we highlighted in our written materials as well, you know, for example, comprehensive plan, land use policy 1.5, encouraging innovative residential land development techniques to provide greater housing opportunities in a variety of living environments. Another example, housing goal 4.7, address the needs of the elderly and prepare for an aging population by employing construction of multifamily type structures and smaller living units, and making sure that they're close proximity to shopping, dining, it says medical facilities specifically, public transit, retail. So just as an example, those two goals and policies, this proposal is directly achieving and addressing those types of goals. And so based on that, you know, that would be supporting justification for the commission to recommend approval of that specific request for the amendment and the reason. So by contrast, TSI in their opposition letter has incorrectly construed those goals and those policies as approval criteria, as objective, mandatory directives that the applicant must show and must meet, and the city must necessarily find are met before you can approve any amendment and rezone. That's just not correct. That's not how the comprehensive plan works within the code criteria, code standard. And so while TSI certainly disagrees with this proposal, and they may certainly disagree with the city's ultimate recommendation on that amendment and rezone, there's nothing in the city's comp plan that requires the commission or the council to take a certain action based on achieving or not achieving a certain goal or policy. That's really important to keep in mind. And the comp plan is a guiding instrument. As you know, it frames your decisions in your review on these proposals, but it does not dictate one or the other. So again, staff's report, along with our response that's submitted now, outlines dozens of those policies and goals that we believe are relevant, and they're achieved with this particular project and this particular rezone and amendment proposal. I suspect that there's going to be follow-up during the rebuttal period on this particular point and other points that may arise. And so in public comment or questions from the commissioners. So I'm gonna yield at that point, but I believe that's the conclusion of our presentation. But I will pass this back to Travis and to the commissioners for any questions that you may have of anyone from our team, at least at this time. So thank you again.
All right, thanks, Armand. And everybody else from the applicants team, I appreciate your presentation and information. Do we have any questions for them at this point from the commission?
Yeah, I've got a question, I guess. So, when you say it's senior living, I tend to think that it's, that it's really elderly people that maybe need medical care or whatnot, but that isn't the case here. These are just standard apartments. I didn't see anything in the floor plan that had nurses' offices or doctor medical care, anything like that. These are basically just apartments, correct?
They're apartments that are marketed toward seniors.
Sure, but they're not nursing homes, right?
No, none of that services are provided.
So that just that brings me to the.
Kevin, why don't you let me answer that? This is Dean Kirkland, Chairman of Kirkland Development. These are marketed for 60 and a half and older exclusively. That will be the limit. That will be the age barrier. We have over 1,000 units around the Portland, Vancouver metro. So they are senior living only, and it's exclusive to them, if that helps.
And this is going to be the 62 and over, you say, and not the 55?
Yeah, 62 and older.
Okay, that's not that there's such a giant difference there, but I'm still concerned with Sam's point regarding parking. It doesn't appear that there's enough parking there. I don't think.
I would say this: I had Manor Management, who manages our facilities for us, and I asked him on average, what's the percentage of parking that's full? 20% to 25 max. And we can take you around and show you facility after facility. They just don't, these people don't drive that much. And what was alluring to this site was Safeway, medical, the eateries within walking distance.
For sure, I agree with you on that. I was just concerned about the parking. I know that in a lot of I'm sorry, maybe there's a delay and I keep talking over you accidentally, so I apologize for that. I know that in my day job, I get a lot of complaints of, residential neighborhoods next to multifamily housing. There's never enough parking for multifamily housing, and the parking inevitably spills over to other areas. And just based on some of the public comments that I looked at, there was a concern with for residents' cars parked along the industrial streets, which might be a viable complaint or a viable worry for some of them as far as bringing trucks in and out of industrial areas. If you line both sides of the street with parking, that might be tougher to negotiate those corners and such. But I just wanted to bring that up to have you address it.
Brian, it's a great concern, and we just want to rest that concern. The code allows for it, and we're really even less than code. One thing that wasn't mentioned at least twice was that there is a shuttle service that the development provides, and really so as seniors age out and stop driving, this is really a great place to move to where you can have services nearby where you don't have to drive, and you do have shuttle service to take you on side trips and that sort of thing.
I do really like the location of it next to the grocery store. I think that's almost ideal. So I agree with you on that. But okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, Dean, I want to follow up on what you said about 20% parking use. Is that 20% of the parking that you provide, or 20% of the units need parking places?
20% of the total parking. that we provide.
Okay, so so it looks like you're providing 49 spaces, so you would anticipate, 10 of those actually being used at any one time?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thanks. Any other questions from commission?
I think that they did a pretty good job of handling the parking situation, and I find that there's always sufficient parking when it comes to these types of development, and considering the demographics, it's a good, looks like a good plan.
All right, Sam, did you have any questions for the applicant?
It looks like a nice project.
Okay. I've got, let's see, one or two questions. I guess, so I think a lot of concerns about this have to do with traffic and, parking and people moving around as pedestrians. I believe this is inside our golf cart zone, and I'm wondering if the applicant has any, I don't know, it plans on any provisions to take advantage of that, because I think that's another, to some people, I think it probably sounds a little bit silly that we have a golf cart zone, but I think it's that's another way to keep people mobile while also not really contributing to traffic. And I wonder if, I didn't see anything in your plan about that, but I wonder if you would consider including that.
This is Dean. We think that's a great idea. We're actually planning for one down in the Vancouver waterfront, very similar to this. And we're looking at golf carts for the same thing. So yeah, I think with all the amenities that Woodland has to offer that are close by, and then of course Horseshoe Lake, the river close by, two hospitals with Legacy up in Salmon Creek and the hospital in Longview, and the golf courses at up Lewis River and at Tri Mountain. Just having the golf course so they can get around if it is within the zone, I think it would be an amenity we would embrace.
Okay, great. The other question I had was about the pedestrian access to the parcel next door to the Safeway lot. It looked like maybe that was just for residents and not for the general public. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be a connection for the residents to get to the Safeway and the other retail services east of the property.
Okay.
And then we would have a fob secured door at that access point there, Commissioner Jensen.
Okay, great. Thank you. I imagine we'll have more questions, later in the hearing, but I'm satisfied for now. Just want to make sure all the other commissioners, no more questions before I move on.
No more questions.
Oh, I'm fine at this point.
I'm good.
Okay, great. In that case, I'm going to open public testimony, and just because I haven't seen many messages, I want to reiterate that we haven't worked out all the kinks for taking public testimony remotely yet, but we're trying to, and your input is important. So we want to make sure that we hear from everybody who wants to speak. Right now, I know of just one person that wants to give public testimony, and that's Darlene Johnson. If there's anyone else who wants to give testimony, please, if you can, let us know in the chat window, and just mention your city of residence and that you want to speak. Okay, I see Myron Calvert, fantastic. And just to kind of keep things a little organized, I want to, if I can, start with people who would like to speak in support of the project. And then, if there's anyone that wants to speak in support, we'll go first. Then if anyone has anything neutral, and then we'll finish with those opposed. And I want to also mention that I see there's at least one person that has called in. If there's anyone who can't, who doesn't have a camera or microphone on their computer, who is calling on a phone, or their computer doesn't work for any reason, you can also give public comment over the phone. You need to call 1-877-309-2073. That's the go-to meeting number, and I believe that's also posted on the our agenda that's on the city website. So yeah, please bear with us. This is still a little clumsy, but we want to make sure everybody who wants to speak gets a chance to. So right now I've got Darlene Johnson and Myron Calvert. I believe you are both speaking in opposition, so I'm going to see if anybody wants to speak in support first, but then we'll get to you. So I'm just going to keep rambling for another minute, maybe, see if anybody has a chance. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody, so Darlene, do you want to, I think, okay. So just because it's 8:24 already, I think we should probably have a time limit. We normally do 3 minutes, but it looks like there aren't that many folks who want to speak. So I think we can do 5 minutes. And Melissa, if you're able to share your screen and put that timer up, that would be great. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much. And Darlene, are you ready to give comment?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
All right, great. So whenever you're ready, get going, and we'll start that timer and have at it.
Well, first off, we have a trucking company within the city of, within the city of Woodland. And I really take exception to the fact that older people aren't driving. We have truck drivers now that are driving up into their 70s. And so, and also I'm older also, and I don't have one friend that I know of that doesn't drive and drive regularly. So, and then the comprehensive plan, part of the benefit is for the health and welfare of the people. And really, family wage jobs and benefits has a tremendous effect on everybody's health and welfare. And to take property that could be providing family wage jobs, especially light industrial jobs, that is all ready for development, and put it into senior housing, to me is not logical and not a good move for the city. Also, we say we need more housing for people that are going to work. Well, this isn't going to be providing housing for people who are going to out and try to get an industrial job. I also feel that if we had more family wage, good paying jobs, a lot of people that are currently working outside of the area, the 14% that have jobs within Woodland would grow if we were providing those jobs. And just because that land isn't developed right now doesn't mean it wouldn't be. There's other areas where the project I don't mind, it's just the location. And when we say it's close to medical facilities, the only medical facilities that I see there is an eye doctor and a dentist. It's not like you're going to your doctor. We need to, Woodland needs to look at what they do and look into the future a little bit more. The traffic situation is not good now, and especially not good for trucking. And, they're going to help with the traffic. That was the response to my concern about the traffic. They're going to put $41,000 into the traffic. What'll that fill? 10 potholes, if that. And so, in effect, the more you do to hurt traffic, the more you hurt the industrial area. And And when you add that many units, senior or not, it's going to increase the traffic, and they're doing nothing to actually mitigate that other than put money into a fund. So I think that it's very short-sighted to locate this in that area. And I'm hopeful you will deny the application and recognize that jobs are something that the industrial area provides, not senior living facility provides. I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Darlene. I appreciate that. Thanks for showing up and being patient with us and giving your testimony. The next person I've got is Myron Calvert. I believe speaking on behalf of the truck repair shop. Yes, is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
As indicated, I represent the landowners who are immediately south of the property that's proposed to be developed today. I've also been asked to provide a couple of pictures to the commission for Topper Industries, which is kitty corner. So I'll provide those pictures as I go along. In response to the letter provided by Jordan Ramus, Armand Rest Spots, I'd like to make a few points. First, there's been much objection about whether the Clark County Comprehensive Plan applies or not, if the Cowlitz County Comprehensive Plan applies or not, and there are a couple of legal authorities that are cited in there. Does the city have counsel here at the commission meeting or not? They do? Excellent. Okay, so it may be that the commission should consult with its counsel about each of these varying interpretations of the law. But there was an argument, for example, that one of the cases we cited in our objection letter that was filed a couple of days ago was overturned on other grounds. That's irrelevant to the bases for which we cited the case, which was not overturned at all, and is in fact cited in multiple cases. So that comment just kind of avoids the real issue, which is the law requires evidence of changed circumstances when an applicant seeks to change a comprehensive plan designation. Jordan Ramus's letter then cites the other case that was provided on this issue and says that in that case, no changed circumstance was required because it was just implementing an existing comprehensive plan. The thing that's important about that was in that case, Bjarnson, the city had already amended their comprehensive plan. It just hadn't been implemented yet. So the zone change was a request to adopt the new designation that the city had already approved. That simply is not the case here. There is not an amendment that the city has already approved to allow this property to be redesignated as commercial property. So there absolutely is a requirement in law that the applicant has to demonstrate changed circumstances in order to justify the zone change. The only changed circumstances that we've heard from both the applicant and the staff today are that commercial land is being used more quickly than we expected. So has industrial land. So the industrial land shouldn't be consumed any faster to provide for commercial land. More importantly, the staff explained that population growth is actually significantly slower than the comprehensive plan projected. So the plan expected more residents to move in than are and provided a number of residential units that it was thought would be appropriate for that growth. Those residential units have not been built, and the population is slower and smaller than expected. So the need for residential units is not as great as is being depicted here. More importantly, the comprehensive plan change that is being requested is for a commercial zone. Less than 1% of this property will be used for commercial space. Now, Woodland Municipal Code doesn't specify a certain percentage of square footage that must be commercial in order to qualify for a commercial zone. But the spirit of the Zoning and Planning Growth Management Act policies is to ensure that commercial land is used for commercial purposes. That's the whole zoning designations and specifying which area is appropriate for which use. Now, certainly the Woodland Municipal Code allows for residential uses on commercial land, but doesn't that necessarily require that the commercial purpose be met first? In this case, there's more than 100 times, well, excuse me, that's incorrect, nearly 100 times more residential square footage than there is commercial square footage. There are only 1,500 square feet of commercial space, and the applicant admits that most of the people who go there are the residents who live on the property. That is not an appropriate use of a highway commercial designation. The purpose of a highway commercial designation is to provide commercial lands nearby with access to and focus on commercial services for automobiles and trucks. And this property, as we can see in the plans and maps that have been provided by the city, is nowhere near a highway. The screenshot that I'm showing you right now is the picture that was provided by Topper Industries. You can see this large red truck here on the street. That is a truck that is going to Topper Industries. This property to the north is A1 Truck Repair, where our clients routinely do diesel and heavy truck repair and maintenance, which will be precisely next door to this residential facility that is being proposed. I'm going to click through a lot of these because I'm quickly running out of time, and if the commission would allow, I would appreciate an extension of time so I can show you the impact of this residential use in an industrial neighborhood.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Any other commissioners have any problem with hearing a little bit more from Myron? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Great. I'll try to go as quickly as possible without speaking so fast that you can't understand me.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
As we can see, the comprehensive plan amendment requires that the Clark County comprehensive plan and the Cowlitz County comprehensive plan must be considered. Now, here's why. I'll go through this legal argument quickly and then get to the facts, because legal arguments are not interesting for most normal human beings. The city comprehensive plan expressly states on page LU 15 that the city's comprehensive plan was developed in accordance with Clark County county-wide planning policies, and it's integrated with all other planning elements to ensure consistency throughout the comprehensive plan. So the city's comprehensive plan can only be interpreted in the context of the Clark County comprehensive plan. While the comprehensive plan may or may not be directly binding on the city, that isn't the point. The city's comprehensive plan was specifically intended to be consistent with the Clark County plan. And so the city's comprehensive plan can only be interpreted in the context of the Clark County plan. More importantly, the city's comprehensive plan also expressly says that it does the same thing with regards to the Cowlitz County comprehensive plan. And you'll see in the letter that we submitted, there are a number of instances where the Clark County, the Cowlitz County, and the city comprehensive plan are all consistent. They all prioritize future expansion of industrial land. They all want to attract family wage jobs, and they all want to preserve industrial sites. The applicant's attorney has objected to the fact that our objection routinely points to the number of jobs that are being lost by this proposal. The reason we're pointing to the number of jobs is because this is industrial land specifically created to provide jobs. And as industrial land, this property was anticipated to create 8 jobs. As commercial land, the city's comprehensive plan estimated that commercial spaces of 2 acres would provide 20 jobs. The proposed use for this site is only going to generate 6 jobs. So as Commissioner Mattson pointed out, this is not an assisted living facility or a nursing home. These are merely apartments for elderly people. So it's not a commercial use of this property, really. We end up with a net loss of industrial land, and the city will end up with a net loss of 2 to 14 jobs beyond what the city had planned for. Now, state law requires that the commission must implement the comprehensive plan and must follow the comprehensive plan in performing all of its activities. So the commission is required to consider that the city comprehensive plan for commercial land planned on 20 jobs. Rezoning this property as commercial land, knowing that it will only generate 6 jobs, is not consistent with the county's plan. And that's the problem. Even if the commission is reluctant to look to county's plan, the commission can look directly to the city's comprehensive plan and see that it too prioritizes industrial opportunities to attract jobs. It wants to preserve prime industrial sites. The other thing that's interesting is most of the conversation today justifying this project and explaining why it's necessary has focused on residential uses and residential reasons. There has been no conversation about whether another pub is not needed in the city, whether another 1,500 square feet of commercial property is necessary. Instead, what's happening is the applicant and the staff are using residential justifications for a commercial zone. That violates state law. The Growth Management Act says that the comprehensive plan must identify and design certain land use designations, and those policies and goals for those land use designations must be implemented when the city acts. As you can see here, even if this were a residential zone, the city of Woodland has a stated goal, H2, that requires a well-organized combination of land use designations to protect the fabric and character of residential neighborhoods. As you'll see from the pictures that follow, this is not a residential neighborhood. Goal 5 requires the commission to create neighborhoods that have adequate buffers from noise, odors, and environmental stresses.
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick, Myron.
Yes.
We're not seeing your presentation anymore, and so
Oh.
reshare it, please.
That's horrifying. I don't know where it went.
It's the hazards of remote meetings, unfortunately.
Right.
So please show those. And you know, we are at 10 minutes, so you know, I know you've got a little bit more to show us, but do keep time in mind, please.
Yes, I hear you. Thank you. I'm sorry. There we go. Let me show you quickly the pictures. I'll talk as fast as I can. I will
Still
keep
not
it.
seeing it. We're still not seeing it.
Here we
Sorry.
go.
I want to make sure we get to.
I've got it for you.
Okay. All right, there it is. Great. Thank you.
Yep, and I'm going to go as quickly as possible to try to get through this. What I wanted to show you is, this is the property that is immediately to the south. This is A1 truck repair with diesel fumes, diesel odors, and lots of really heavy trucks that are there all the time. It's not 1 or 2 trucks at a time. It's multiple trucks consistently. And the reason this is important is right here. This white building is A1 truck repair. This is the proposed development. And as you can see, this is a 5-story residential building that proposes to be right next to the A1 truck repair building, the entire length of the building. And this proposed building is 34 feet or more taller than the A1 truck repair building. There are no trees or soundproofing or any possible modifications that could be installed to protect these residents from the noise and fumes and sound that is going to come from an industrial use. And that's not the industrial user's fault. It is precisely why the city comprehensive plan requires buffers to be in place and ensures that the commission not put incompatible uses next to each other. And it isn't just A1 truck repair. We've talked about the proximity to Safeway, but this red line right here shows you where the Safeway's semis will be driving. So this residential use is immediately next to all kinds of heavy diesel truck use and right next to the semi-truck lane. There are a number of reasons, in addition to the comprehensive plan concerns. The purpose of highway commercial property is to provide commercial services that are accessible by automobiles and trucks. This map shows that there is no highway access here. That isn't the point. This property is not uniquely located for that purpose. And the applicant has admitted that the point of this property is the walkability to commercial properties. Retirees don't have cars. They want 80% less parking and flexibility for that reason. So all of the justifications for this property have expressly proven that they violate the very purpose of the comprehensive plan for creating highway commercial land in the first place. The comprehensive plan goal EC 3.7, most importantly, requires that the city must develop areas that are already classified for commercial use before changing any other areas and reclassifying them to commercial use. There is plenty of commercial land left, not as much as was planned, but it's still there. And the comprehensive plan expressly tells the planning commission and the city council to develop the other areas first before you start reclassifying things. Ultimately, the staff report admits that this really is a redesignation of this property as residential. And as I mentioned, a residential justification for a commercial designation violates state law. It crosses the very purposes and violates the whole point of calling commercial land commercial if less than 1% of the property is being used for commercial land. In addition, high density residential limits are 35 units per acre. That's probably part of the reason that applicant is not here requesting a residential designation today, because they're trying to put 75 units per acre. They wouldn't be allowed to build this building in a residential unit. It has too many units in it. Also, there are very clear goals, policies, and statements in both the Clark and the Cowlitz County Comprehensive Plan that encourage retention, development of commercial and industrial land, and actively seek to prevent conversion of jobs land to residential land.
Hey, Myron, I'm going to give you one more minute, and I do want to remind you that we have read your letter and appreciated that. It was a very good letter. So
thank you.
Keep that in mind.
Yep, thank you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this is not just an objection to a senior living facility. Actually, there's no objection to senior living facility. The objection is to placing a 99% residential facility in an industrial space, calling it commercial property because it has 1,500 square feet of commercial land, and expecting that to meet the requirements of the Growth Management Act and the City Comprehensive Plan. It violates all of the planning requirements that the commission is being told to follow. And the final objection that I would like to address from the applicant is that our letter has been accused of cherry picking and pulling one policy out and enforcing it to the obfuscation or ignoring the other policies. In fact, the opposite is true. The requirement to keep jobs land and not convert it to residential land must be enforced at the same time as having innovative ways to have residential land and having multi-unit properties, multifamily properties. There's no objection to multifamily properties, but there is an objection to putting that deeply inside a light industrial area, trying to call it commercial so that you can get through the zoning process, and then only having 1,500 square feet of commercial space in a zoned commercial property. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Myron, Ms. Calvert. All right, so Doug and Brenda, I just want to make sure that all the commissioners can see the comment that Doug and Brenda left in the chat box. I believe they aren't able to connect to us with the microphone. So I want to make sure everybody can see that. And I also want to make sure that everybody who wants to speak has. This is kind of your last chance to, at least for this public hearing tonight, have input, and I want to make sure everybody who wants to is able to. So I'm going to keep rambling for a little while just to make sure we don't miss anybody. Your comments are really important to this process, and we do really value them. Yes, Janice, that's a good idea. I'm gonna read Doug and Brenda's comment into the record, and just so that it's we keep things official, and that'll also give anybody else who wants to contact us a little bit more time. So this is from Doug and Brenda. People who are 65 years old and older drive. It is silly to think that these people will not drive. They need more parking. Also, if this place will be open to the general public, where will they park? Do these residents have to dodge the traffic getting to Safeway, the eye clinic, and dentist? There are no sidewalks to Safeway, and there is no doctor's office close, only specialists. Woodland said that they need more places for people to live who work here in Woodland. Are these people going to work here in Woodland? No, they are not. This is a terrible place to put a place like this. Put it somewhere else. This is not an assisted living senior facility. It is a senior living facility, which is just an apartment complex for people over a certain age. Please do not rezone this property to highway commercial simply to put an apartment complex in. Put in some other place. Please do not rezone this property. Okay, so that was from Doug and Brenda, just making sure that got into the public record. We're still, working out this remote thing. Okay, looks like Dave Lester also wants to speak. So Dave, yeah, we'd like to hear from you. Are you able to, looks like you're muted right now. Okay, there you're on. Please, and just let me remind you to, use your time effectively. No need to repeat things that others have said. We want to hear what you have to say, but go for it.
Comments on traffic. I set a note in on the subject, but I did a little analysis. We send about 1,500, there are about 1,500 truck trips in and out of our property, which is kind of diagonally across from the proposed access to this property a year. You've seen one truck. Some of the gangways and loads are up to 140 feet long. Other than that, just regular trucks bringing product in and us shipping product out. Like I said, there's about 1,500 loads a year. Our employees number about 35. So if you take that, a couple of trips, one in, one out every day, that's another 15,000 trips a year. So traffic is a concern for us. The other thing is noise. Currently, we are not working swing shift. We are to the point we need to start a swing shift. A 5-story building, I'm sure the noise will travel up. We don't make a lot of noise, but still you can't be operating a business till 11 or 12 o'clock at night without making some noise. So I can't imagine a very pleasant environment for people living in this facility. Basically, that was it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Lester. Appreciate hearing from you. All right. I see Dean Kramer would like to comment. We're gonna give the applicant a chance to respond here in a minute. So I'll ask Dean to hold off for just a second. Is there anyone else that would like to submit some public comment? Let me remind you, this is your last chance tonight to speak. So we want to make sure that everybody who wants to gets a chance to. Your input is really important to this whole process and important to the commission. All right, and okay, I'm not seeing anybody else. If somebody shows up that wasn't able to, we might be able to fit a comment in later if you weren't able to speak yet. We'll just see how it goes. I do want to. We're operating under sort of adverse conditions here, so I recognize that it's more difficult. So we're going to fudge our procedures just a little bit to err on the side of getting comment. But all right, I think I'm not seeing anybody else wants to comment. So Travis, do you have a response to anything that we've heard?
The question about traffic, I know the applicant's traffic consultant is there. He may have a little more informed response to that, but I do recognize that at 150 units, their traffic plan shows, I believe it's about 650 trips per day, whereas 150 units of single-family residential would create about 1,500 trips per day. So if you could apply that ratio, that's about six trips to every 15 trips that would normally occur. So it generates about 1/3 the traffic that normal single-family residential would. If parking held true, that's a pretty similar reduction in parking. Also, Myron brought up the point about the city plan having to comply with the county plan, or she referred to, sorry, the land use chapter of the city's comprehensive plan. What it says is they are in alignment. It doesn't necessarily say that we will implement the county planning policies. Plus, because this property is in Cowlitz County, I'm not sure we could even legally apply Clark County planning, countywide planning policies in this jurisdiction. For that, I would require some legal advice. And so one thing that I would like to bear in mind here, and that is your job is to make a recommendation to the city council, and the city's attorney can, who is attending, he can take this information in and he can provide legal advice to the city council. I don't know that you necessarily need to balance, or you're required to wait for that legal counsel from the city before making your recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Travis. Yeah, I might, after we hear from the applicant again, I might, I'll probably see if Frank has any quick words for us, but that's a good point. All right, if there's nothing else from you, Travis, I give the applicant another chance to address some of the issues that have been raised. Bear in mind that it's coming up on 9 o'clock. You know, we obviously want to hear what you have to say, but we have read your letters and appreciate them. Appreciate the time that went into those. So yeah, let's hear from the applicant again, please.
Thank you very much. In our conference room tonight is myself as chairman of the company. To my right is Kristen Kirkland, our president, and then Dana Gardner, our director of project. Probably more than most on this Zoom call, Kristen and I grew up in Hazeldale. I've been by this site for a long, long time and kept my eye on it. The person selling the site, I actually bought another property from him about 4 years ago. And we looked at doing a mini storage or RV or some sort of light industrial. And we got pushback from the city because they didn't want it to be, some of the comments were a city of storages or metal buildings and pole barns, things like that. And there was already a lot of storage. Then we started looking at the hospitals in Salmon Creek, the hospital in Longview, and all the amenities around the new casino and entertainment, golf courses, and the river. And that led us to purchase the property and pour in a lot of money. We spent probably $500,000 to get where we're at, and we didn't do it haphazardly. We built a lot of things around the community that we can point to, and we're very proud of it. And our senior facilities have done very, very well. Having said that, as we got into the first of the year, I think the property to the south had an offer on it because I believe it was for sale, the trucking company. And then a backup offer came in behind us on our property. And we were asked if we would step aside for it by the broker. And I said, we are very committed to the city of Woodland and to what we want to achieve. So I just want that on the record. And we thank you for your time. And we want to do a great building that'll be a great asset to the community. And I think it'll be a smashing success for Woodland and bring something to the corridor that Woodland can be proud of. And I think it'll also, if you look at economics, people are the drivers. They're going to be spending money at all these eateries that are so badly needed, all these different businesses that are in town. They also will pay sales tax, probably in the tune of $500,000 if you start to factor it out, plus property tax. So you're talking about $1 million in tax revenue. So the drivers will be the people that are living there. And I don't think it'll just be 6 people working there. During the construction, there'll be over 100 people working there. After it's built, probably 20 to 25 between part-time and full-time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dean. Were there any more comments from the applicant's team?
Yes, Commissioner, I would just ask for 2 minutes. You can even time me. I will be brief as possible.
All right, thanks. Go ahead, Armand.
I want to briefly respond to the points, the jobs discussion, and then the change circumstances. So jobs are not the determinative factor. So the comp plan does not require a no net loss or net gain of jobs, especially from a development project to development project level. So long-term planning decisions are couched in promoting the goals and the policies of the plan, but there's no concrete measurables that dictate a decision on individual applications. So as a functional matter, you're always going to lose jobs from an industrial to any designation. That's the reality of it. But the applicant here has incorporated a commercial component that also is employing a residential use above, serving a lot of different uses and hitting a lot of different needs. And then right into change circumstances, while me and Ms. Calvert may disagree on the application of that law, I'm not going to get bogged down in that. But I will say that change circumstances exist regardless in this case. As Dean was hitting at, I mean, this site hasn't developed for decades. So there's no past, present, or apparently future employment of a use on that site. And then, you know, along with that, there is the overall housing crisis going on. And being able to employ a commercial with a residential component is addressing a lot of these change circumstances in the broader counties, both Cowlitz and Clark. And just a final point, upon adoption of the city's comprehensive plan, that city comprehensive plan controls. And unless it's expressly noted in that plan that another county provision or a county comprehensive policy expressly applies, the city doesn't review proposals for consistency with those county plans. As Travis hinted at, this is a Cowlitz jurisdiction property, so the county comprehensive plan would not specifically apply to it unless expressly incorporated. And just reiterating my original points, we outlined a number of other policies that also rebut Ms. Calvert's letter and some of her testimony on why we believe that these amendments and this rezone should be approved. And with that, I will rest my time. I have nothing else to add, but I do want to just check in with Kevin Brady and the development team just for a final time in case and the commissioners have any final questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Armand.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that. I don't think anybody else on the development team does either.
All right, great. Thanks, thanks, Kevin, as well. Okay, Travis, I think you mentioned you had one more thing to add before we move on.
Yeah, sorry, the one note that I did miss when I was doing my recap, and that is I did look at this property. It has been zoned light industrial since at least the 1993 comp plan, when it was in the mixed highway commercial industrial zone identified on the map. And the other thing that I had forgotten to mention, and that is within the last 10 years, the city has annexed more than 460 acres of industrial land. Whether that constitutes a change in circumstance, I don't know whether that qualifies or not, but between the growth and the availability of industrial land supply, I would assume that that would factor into it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Travis. All right, I see Doug and Brenda had one more comment. So I want to read that into the record as well. I think they used less than 5 minutes between their two comments, so I'm going to let that go. We were born and raised in Woodland since 1959. Our business has been here since 1982. We have 15 employees on our small spot. Please do not tell us about Woodland. We were the first business in this location. Senior living would be great somewhere else in Woodland. Please do not rezone this property. Doug and Brenda. Doug and Brenda, would you type in there which business is yours real quick? I think you're talking about the business to the south, but I just want to make sure that we know what that is. All right. I want to again make sure, give one last chance for public testimony. This is the real last chance. I'm going to close public testimony after this. So please speak now. Okay, I see that, Doug and Brenda. Thank you. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, with that, I'm going to close public testimony. And now we're going to move on to commission deliberation. I do want to check in with Frank Randolph real quick, see if you have any quick words for us, Frank. I think my hunch is that maybe the legal question is for other people to worry about and not the commission this evening, but maybe you have something to say about that.
Thank you, Tel. I have not had a chance to review the 2 legal arguments, but I will.
Okay, great. Thank you, Frank. Okay, so I think, you know, those arguments are in the public record now, and I think they are important considerations. Obviously, the Planning Commission is not really qualified to deal with the legal aspects of this. So, you know, those are important, but I think they're going to largely need to be left to other bodies and professionals to determine. So with that, I want to open up deliberation to the rest of the commission. Until we start talking over each other, I think, you know, we can just, if you got something to say, go for it. If it gets messy, then we'll try to be, you know, a little more organized, but let's see how it goes.
So I'll go ahead and go first, I suppose. I don't see an issue with changing the comp plan and then the zone change, to be honest. It's right next to an established grocery store, obviously a commercial business there. I know that's not a lot of commercial that they're proposing, but it is commercial on the ground floor and residential above there, right? So it fits an allowed use within, I think, the C2 zone is, I think that's what Travis was saying. So if it's an allowed use, then, you know, then I think that, you know, staff is justified in you know, approving it or recommending approval. I do think that the pedestrian connection to Safeway is important. Right. I think on the plan it said like the entrance is being negotiated with Safeway. I would hate to see that go away. I think that's an important aspect of this project. And as you know, I tried to read some of the public comments to see what the opposition was you know, mainly concerned with, and there was a lot of statements about people walking, and I don't know if that's people walking down the sidewalk shouldn't be scared to be run over by a truck, right? So as long as people are on the sidewalk, I think that you know, surrounding industrial businesses should avoid them, right? So I guess that's about it, or at least initially, those are my comments.
Thanks, Brian.
You know what? I'm sorry. I also I like the density. I think we need it, right? So even though the density is above, I think it was Myron Calvert was mentioning the density was much greater than would be allowed in a multifamily. I think the city could benefit from that density. You know, we certainly have limited housing choices, and it would make a dent in that, at least for people older than 62, at least.
I have to concur with Brian. I feel the same on all those points that you'd mentioned. I don't see any issue either. It is an allowed use. Connectivity is important, especially walkability from retail outlets like, let's say, the Safeway to the housing unit. That's sure that's a concern, but I don't really take any issue with the proposal. So.
All right, thanks, Jason. Sam, what are your thoughts?
It looks like a very nice project. You know, 49 parking spots aren't enough for this. I don't care what studies are done. You have 150 units and many of those units, I imagine there's gonna be 2 people there, but I wouldn't say it's a deal killer. They're gonna, I mean, to be realistic, if I am right in that, people are gonna be parking at Safeway and walking over. There's a sidewalk. I don't know how that plays into this, but I believe it makes sense. I mean, there's a place for people to go and move into, the high density issue. I like the fact that these are established people that are going to be moving in, 55 and older. I think it's probably good for that little community on that side.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Well, I have a couple thoughts that I'm hoping they'll, generate a little more discussion. So I think, I see the issues that have been raised kind of in opposition, but also, in favor of it. Both jobs and traffic have come up, parking, our supply of, housing, commercial, industrial land, kind of both sides of this issue have been addressing those things. And I guess so on the starting from the traffic point, I feel like this is really the first development I've seen on my time on the commission that is kind of explicitly trying to develop without creating more traffic. And I think that's really important and valuable. And supposing this goes ahead and is successful, I think that I would hope that would be an example moving forward, and encourage more projects that seek to, add useful space to the city without exacerbating our traffic problems, because that is, those are real issues, and that people, perennially bring up traffic. I think we need to pay attention to, and I think, for the first time that I remember, an applicant is, considering that and trying to address that, and I think that's important. I think it also, I think it's scary for folks in, a small town like ours to just like plop down a bunch of housing in one spot. I think this is, maybe a good spot to try that, because it's not in the middle of an existing residential neighborhood where it would, dramatically change the character of a neighborhood, basically, effectively overnight. This is it's an existing commercial and industrial spot. It's not gonna change someone's, slow residential street overnight. And I think that is nice. I think we haven't had a lot of opportunities to get a lot of housing without, big changes to a big part of the city. So I like that. I think our land supply, as Travis mentioned, industrial land is important. That's like, there's no way around that. We need to, protect our industrial land and make sure we've got enough for the industrial uses, that want to continue to exist in Woodland, and come to town. That's important. Those jobs are important. That's it's an important part of our culture and our economy here. This is less than 0.5% of our existing supply. That feels to me negligible. I think any loss of industrial land we need to think about carefully, but like this feels, in return for what we're getting, I think maybe that's okay. And then on the parking, you know, I'm kind of in favor of the market determining parking instead of us trying to guess what they need. And if, you know, the applicants, the developers in this situation are guessing that that's the amount of parking they need, you know, the market's gonna determine that. If it turns out people want more parking that's there and they don't want to move in, like, you know, that business is not gonna do well, but that's the way the market works, right? We don't need to dictate the risks that they take. I think that's something important that the city needs to let do. And if you know, if it turns out people are like, they're just covering the streets, on-street parking, like, we have remedy for that also. We can, if that causes problems, we can create no parking zones there. Like, that is within the city's power. We can require permits. We can say there's no parking during business hours. Like, there are ways to address that. If they start parking in Safeway's lot, you know, Safeway's got a huge parking lot that is empty the vast majority of the time. That doesn't seem so terrible to me. That seems like a use of existing space. If Safeway disagrees, you know, they also have remedy to, you know, keep people who aren't going to Safeway from parking there. That is, you know, their private property and they have control over that. I do think Ms. Calvert's point about commercial, you know, basically trying to sneak a residential development into a commercial zone, I think that has merit. And you know, I think I think mixed use buildings are great. I think we need more of them. I think they're going to be really good for the city because they do minimize, or at least reduce, the amount that you know, people need to jump in their cars, or in this case, maybe in their golf carts, to get somewhere else. So I think the mixed use is good. In this case, the commercial does feel like a little bit of an afterthought. And I think I would feel a little bit better about it if the access from Safeway was not just for residents. I know it's you know, maybe that can be like, at least during business hours, have that open for public access. Just because, you know, if this is a commercial development, I think it's important for, you know, pedestrian access there, especially because you know, there's not a lot of parking on site, which I think is good. I think we're encouraging people to walk instead, and I'm in favor of that. But, you know, make it accessible to the public. Your street frontage on that corner is pretty minimal. You know, you're squeezing in some pedestrian access there, but you know, maybe you've got a bunch of good signage planned and a real nice walkway. That would be lovely. I would love to see that. But I do, you know, if this is a commercial development, I want it to be, you know, personally, I want it to see it be accessible to the public. I don't know, I'm getting a little long-winded here, but you know, those are my initial thoughts, and you know, I'm hoping Commission has some more, I guess, more thoughts after that. So, does any of that make any sense to any of you?
Sense, Phil.
Thanks.
So Tell, I liked your points about letting the market dictate the amount of parking. I think you make a good point there. Also, you know, you made the point of if people parking on surrounding roads are a problem, that the city can do something about that. They have avenues to change that. So that I thought those were good points. I also wanted to add that this lot is surrounded by buildings, you know, not counting the Safeway, but the other industrial buildings that don't appear to be brand new. This lot appears to have been vacant for quite a while. It's not like it's highly sought after industrial land that's being instead used for this purpose. Maybe because of the size of it isn't large enough or whatnot, but this lot has remained undeveloped for a long time. And so I don't see it as that we're missing a lot in opportunity cost by allowing, you know, quasi-commercial residential project to go there. I don't think we're displacing a lot of industrial opportunity because, quite frankly, it would have been there already, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, like, I mean, we can wish for industrial all day long. But that doesn't mean it's just going to show up just because we leave it vacant. So, you know, and I guess we're hearing some safety concerns from business owners, and I think, you know, safety is really important. From my personal experience, you know, I biked to Hayes Cabinets for 2.5 years while I was working there. I never felt unsafe. You know, there's a stop sign at that intersection. I think potentially it could use some painted crosswalks. I think that would help with safety. But you know, I never encountered an issue. I did walk a few times, and also, you know, that was never trouble for me. You know, that's been 5 and 6 years ago, so maybe things have changed since then. But I think, if there are, you know, design issues on the street, that doesn't have anything to do with this applicant. You know, if trucks are driving over the sidewalk, which I don't think they are, but you know, even if they, you know, they probably shouldn't be like that. You know, that road's been there for a while, and if it needs changes, it needs changes. But again, I don't think that has much to do with this applicant. And I think, you know, I think that the existing businesses, I think there's also a little bit of anxiety about, you know, throwing residents in here that are going to suddenly complain about the businesses there and the industrial businesses. And, you know, that's an important condition on this, is that those exist, they're there, and it's near an industrial zone. And if that's not what you want to live next to, you know, again, I think that's part of letting the market figure this out. I don't think there's any inherent health issues there. I think the developer is aware of those industries, and you know, their construction is, I have to imagine, either going to take that into consideration or have trouble filling their units. And you know, I think that's an all right response to that. So,
this isn't necessarily pertinent to this argument, but I just wanted to mention that I think that whoever designed the building, the architects or whatnot, did a good job with the roof modulation and the articulated facades and stuff. It isn't a giant monolith. It's a very pretty building.
yeah, you know, I like to see brick facades, but you know, failing that, it's not so bad. It looks good. All right, how do we feel about the, you know, unless anybody has some further thoughts, how are we feeling about the conditions that staff has recommended? Do you see any changes to those that would be good?
I didn't notice any changes that popped out to me, Tel, but again, I do want to stress the importance of that pedestrian connection to Safeway.
That's not conditioned right now, and I think we could add that.
Okay. I think that we should add that then.
Okay.
Hopefully Safeway is not against it, because I don't know if you can force Safeway to do something if they don't want to do it. But
that's a good point. I don't know.
I can't imagine why they wouldn't want more customers, though, right?
Yeah, I think especially if it's, you know, if it's a during business hours sort of thing. You know, I'm not Safeway, so I won't try to speak for them, but I don't think I would have any objections. Yeah, Travis, you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, we cannot technically have a condition that requires them to get access, because we can't delegate approval authority to Safeway. Because if that property owner were to decide not to give an easement, that would kill the project, and they don't have the legal authority to act in the city's stead. So you could recommend a condition or make it part of your recommendation to the city council that they get assurances, but you can't make it a condition of approval.
Okay. Well,
So,
I
and
guess.
do they even need an easement though? I mean, do you need an easement to go into the Safeway parking lot? I think I will modify, or at least I'll modify my recommendation eventually to what Travis was saying. But I mean, I don't. Do you need an easement to go to a parking lot of a commercial business? I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to me that they would, because as far as I understand, it's basically going to be a walkway with a gate, and none of that's going to be on Safeway's property, the applicant's property.
Although
But I do like Travis's idea.
Sorry, there is a landscape strip along that property line.
Gotcha. Yeah, Safeway has the right to restrict access where, I would assume, right? And that would be.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, maybe what you're talking about, Brian, that sounds good. Maybe, encourage a good faith effort by the applicant to make that happen. I would like that. That would make me feel better. Because I think, it's access on that little corner from the, from the street could be really nice. Depending on what they do with the entrance there, it could be really inviting and nice. But I think that's because there's not much street frontage there. That's kind of a difficult spot to bring pedestrians in. But. All right, Jason, Sam, you have any more thoughts about any of that?
No, but this is looks pretty good for the city's future in terms of housing stock and various types of housing needs that the county and city are in need of, and so just a really good opportunity, especially when it comes to infill development.
Yeah, I do also really like that about the project, that it's, we're getting some commercial development and a lot of housing without, having to go outside our, city limits or expand our urban growth boundaries. So that seems really positive. Obviously this site is not perfect in every way, but that's not the criterion we're looking at. But yeah, at this point, I think it's, again, not a perfect project, but has bringing a lot of good things to the table. All right, well, I think it sounds like there's not a lot of discussion left. So I think we're, hopefully moving towards a motion on this. Please.
All right, you want me to take the first attempt at it, Tel?
I think you should give it a shot.
Okay, I move that we recommend or that we support staff's recommendation of approval with the condition that the city council receives some assurances that a pedestrian connection can be possible with Safeway.
I second that.
Okay, that was Brian Mattson and Jason Lugo making a motion and seconded it. I want to check with staff real quick. Does that kind of conform to what you were thinking of? That feels good for what we can ask.
And for a clarification, this is for the comprehensive plan and the zone change cases?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have. I recommend approval, or I support staff's recommendation of the comp plan change to C2, I believe it was, and I recommend approval of the project with an added condition that the city council obtains some assurances that a pedestrian connection is possible with Safeway. Is that better?
That's that.
Okay, so that motion's been made and seconded. Is that clarified for you, Travis? Yeah. Okay. All right. just make sure, do we have any more discussion about that, or are we ready for a vote? All right, I'm not hearing any discussions, so Janice, could you do a roll call vote for us?
Certainly. Let me get sorry, I need to get another little thing here.
All right.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't as prepared as I should have been for that. Okay, roll call vote. Brian Matson,
Aye.
Jason Lugo,
Aye.
Sam Nigro,
Aye.
Tel Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so that's the first part of the hearing dispensed with. So what's another motion for the second part gonna look like? That will be the site plan and variance request. So this is, their plan, but also, we haven't talked about the variance. It is a minor variance, and that's entirely about the height of the building. Yes. Okay. That's within 30 feet of existing. I don't know. Any commission thoughts about that?
I think I read that it was 14 feet, and that's not, I think that's somewhat negligible from anyone of average sensibilities walking around on the ground. But, being that you brought up this point earlier, Tel, and I thought it was a good point, that this is a better spot to put a large building because it is surrounded by industrial uses. It won't be looming over, people's residences or backyards. So I think if you're going to give a variance to height, this spot would be the best spot to do it.
Okay. The issue was brought up also. Do we have, and I hope the fire chief said here, do we have fire apparatus to handle 5 stories?
Yes, the fire district does. We have, and it's recognized by Washington Survey and Ratings Bureau for an aerial apparatus. It's our apparatus that is staffed full-time for that purpose is currently located in Ridgefield, but meets the requirements for that Survey and Ratings Bureau. It's centralized in the district. We have a primary response rig for that as well as a backup rig.
Thanks, Chief. I assume that, this is also going to need to be sprinklered. So there's, some other,
yes, we've and discussed at length with the applicant a number of details for fire protection requirements based not only on the fire code as adopted by the state and the city, but specific requirements in the city. And they have planned actually a fire sprinkler system that would be a full NFPA 13 system, which provides it's really the highest standard of fire protection systems for facilities like this, where in some applications they could get by with a slightly lesser system designed for residential occupancies, but they have proposed putting in that full 13 system that is for full fire control as opposed to just a life safety function.
Okay. I mean, that seems like a good investment to me. And I'm sure the tenants will appreciate that as well. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. Presenters. All right. Any more thoughts on the variance aspect of this? Okay. I'm not seeing any, so I'm hoping we're ready for another motion on this.
Well, as per tradition, I'll move that I move that the commission supports staff's recommendation of approval of the variance and site plan.
Okay, Brian Mattson, make a motion. Okay, seconded by Jason Lugo. Either of you have any more discussion about that?
No. Nope.
No. Okay, Sam, I want to make sure we hear from you if you got anything to say.
I'm fine. Good with it.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Then I think Janice, we're ready for another vote. If you would call the roll.
Thank you. Brian Mattson,
Aye.
Jason Lugo,
Aye.
Sam Nigro,
Aye.
Mel Jensen.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have done all our actions for this section. Is that right? Everything you need, Travis? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing for this item then, and we can move on with the agenda. Not too much left. I don't think we have any discussions or workshops tonight. Before we get any potential staff reports, I just want to thank everybody who came and gave testimony. Thanks for the applicant. Thanks for the public for being patient with us. Really appreciate it. Trying times, but we're making the best of it. So thanks. And stay involved, everybody, please. We understand it's mostly when people are upset that they get involved, but I guess we'll take what we can get. So keep talking to leaders, keep talking to other folks in the community. That's really important. Looks like we do have a little more staff report, Travis.
I just needed to let you know that the end of the year 2020 community developments report is available on the website, and it's on tonight's agenda. And that's it.
Okay, great. Like to get, check in with commissioners. Any commission comments before we wrap up?
None from me.
None from Sam.
Nope.
Okay. I got one quick thing just for commissioners to think about. It sounds like hearing from Melissa and Travis, we're really going to ramp up on some housing plan work in the next couple of months. And I am considering putting in place a subcommittee to help them out with that, just so that planning commissioners have an opportunity to help and provide input and work on that more than once a month at our meetings. Especially because, kind of in-depth discussions are difficult when, it's kind of, it's late. We start at 7, people lose patience, it's in the evening. So that's something I'm thinking about. If any of you have some input on that, let me know. If that sounds like something you want to be involved with, let me know. And I'll keep talking to Travis and Melissa about that as well. Other than that, thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, staff as well, and thanks again to the fire chief and Frank Randolph, everybody for being here and bearing with us tonight. And with that, unless somebody else has something real quick, I think we can. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.